This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism. There's a person missing here today, and that is Josh. And I thought about not doing the podcast because, he's not here, and I'm not delusional. He is the star of the show. I know that full well. I know that people learn so much from him, and his voice is so incredibly important. When we do the podcast and we go around doing our speech, his voice matters. It makes a huge difference. And so, he's not here, but I had a decision to make. One of the things that we tried to do from the very beginning is to be honest with everybody that's listening, and, good, bad, or ugly. It's important stuff. And today, the reason I'm going ahead and doing this is, and what I need to talk to you about then, is the fact that oftentimes Josh just doesn't show up. Whether it's physically he doesn't show up, or emotionally he doesn't show up, or mentally he doesn't show up. And what it feels like for me sometimes, being Josh's mom, is that I have to be like stellar in what I'm doing. I have to be consistent in what I'm doing. And I have to bring an A game every time I'm doing anything for him. And those things happen behind the scenes a lot. Anybody that has a child on the spectrum, or you're a caregiver of someone on the spectrum, there's doctor's appointments, there's medications, there's different kinds of therapies that are going on. There's, in Josh's case, it's SSI, and now that his dad just retired, being informed that SSI is no longer it. It's going to be changed to something else. So I've been working with, until that appointment, I've been talking to other people at Social Security Administration. Been talking to agencies that know Social Security agencies so well to help me to know what I need to do in order for Josh to be okay. And there are times, like today, when I show up because it's what I have to do. Because it's kind of like, it's just been the way it is, Because if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. Josh comes on the podcast and he is who you hear him to be. He's eloquent, he's funny, he's extremely intelligent, he's kind, he's loving, he's very generous, he's all of those things. He is also someone that finds it difficult to be consistent. Other than right now, the thing that he's always consistent on is work. So that's what he does. He does it consistent. He shows up every single time, and he lets them know if he can't. And I am so very proud of him for that, because that's a huge accomplishment. And what I can tell you today on this podcast is just how also being the parent of somebody on the spectrum can oftentimes feel exhausting. And it feels like you can never let your guard down. You've always got to be there. You've got to be available. And I shouldn't talk for anybody else, because maybe, look, if you've got it figured out, please let me know what to do different. But what it does feel like is every time that I feel like, okay, I can just relax, I can let my guard down, then something will come up that has been missed or becomes urgent. It's constantly something. And I get very, very frustrated today. He was supposed to be here hours ago to do a podcast. And instead he's just been sleeping. And while I do understand his need for sleep, because he needs to get rejuvenated, his body needs to get healed, his mind and emotions need to have that downtime. I get that. It's very frustrating, though, that when it comes to my relationship with Josh, it certainly feels like I'm the one that has to give in all the time. I'm the one that has to, again, do it perfect. You know, as it is, I'm always, all the things that we talk about on this podcast, I get it. He needs things to be done a certain way, so we accommodate. He likes certain things and doesn't like other things. We accommodate. I'm always learning about what helps him to thrive. And he's an adult, so I'm still learning about him. And there was just this other part of it where look, I'm not having a pity party because I'm actually angry with him today. I'm not feeling pity for myself. I'm angry with him for not showing up. Because I never get that option. I never have that option when it comes to Josh. I have to show up every single time. And there's just that human side of me right now that just is mad because I worked my schedule around his. He was supposed to be here hours ago, didn't show up, and just in case anybody's worried about him, he's fine. He was sleeping. That's why he didn't come over. So, he is fine. Even, I talked to him on the phone. He said he was fine. I did tell him that I was upset with him about this. I did tell him that I'm doing a podcast without him. So he's aware of it. His dad said to me before I did the podcast, he goes, "Are you sure you want to do a negative podcast like this?" I guess, well, because I'm mad. So you would think it would be a negative podcast. I don't think it's negative to be truthful about the things that are difficult. It's extremely frustrating to me. It's upsetting. I at this late stage, I would have figured out that we would have had a better system, or that I would certainly not be blindsided by these gaps, I guess. But I still am. And because it's tricky, because it's like when he was a little boy, he gets consistent with things, and then there's this consistency that I guess, foolishly begin to rely on, and then it just disappears. Not just once either. There can be something that's consistent for a long period of time, and then it's just done. It's gone. It doesn't show up. So it's always this relationship between the two of us where behind the scenes I'm facilitating. I'm making sure that he's where he needs to be, that phone calls that need to happen, that face-to-face that need to happen, with all the people that I talk about, that he and I talk about on the podcast, all the people that are paramount to his success. The doctors this week are included in that, setting up for him to... It's not called ABA, it's for adults. It's not called ABA, but that's kind of what it is. And to focus on life skills. So behind the scenes, I've been dealing with insurance companies, trying to find out who is going to pay, if anybody is going to pay, for him to get the life skills therapy, I guess you would call it. I don't think it's not called life skills therapy, but he needs help with that, just to stay on track and to be successful. And yes, there's a part of me that gets so frustrated because when Josh was little, it could feel overwhelming. But, the fact is, when he was a little guy, I was young. Right? He's 33 now. So, my mom just died. And so that whole, thought process of mortality is very much part of my psyche right now. And what I'm concerned about more than ever is making sure that things are okay for him when the time comes that I'm not able to be here to help him. And I remember in Pennsylvania, they with the wraparound services, they would call it the transfer of skills, because they would teach Dave, his dad. You know that Dave and myself. They would teach us the skills, and then we would share that with the other adults in his life. Nana and Pappy and my brother and sister-in-law and Dave's sister. We would share all that stuff so that the adults knew what was needed, how to help him the most, what he needs, how to be consistent with certain things. Because until you have a kid on the spectrum, I talk like we all think the same way. Until I had a kid on the spectrum, I didn't think of these things at all. And so it has been, this huge learning curve. And I feel like I'm still on that learning curve because it just keeps happening, and I keep expecting it to be different. And I'm hoping for things to be different. To make sure I don't expect Josh to be different, because he's wonderful as he is. What I am hoping to be different is that I would be able to rely on him and not get tripped up, by him not showing up. And some people have said, well, did you call him? Did you, a lot of things that make it so that I have, for me, again, facilitating us even doing the podcast. Well, yes, as I've tried to separate myself before, this feels different because there was a time in the recent past, and this has been a number of podcasts ago, where, I just am so tired of being responsible for him. And while it might sound like that's exactly what I'm talking about, it feels different to me. Because what feels different is that I can really see that he's trying in areas of his life, that he's successful in areas of his life. And this is not so much about Josh as it is me feeling just so exhausted and frustrated by these same things happening over and over. And no matter what I'm trying to do, no matter who I'm bringing in, no matter who I'm working with to help Josh, it's the same thing. And it's so tricky because he does, like I say, consistency, and then all of a sudden it's just gone. And it throws me for a loop. It also today made me mad because I had set a time aside today to do this. I had set a time for us to be able to get the podcast done in order for me to be able to do the other things that I need to do today. And he just didn't show up. He just didn't show up. And the bottom line is, look, if there was somebody else in my life that just would, blow me off on a regular basis, they wouldn't be in my life anymore. And that's just the way it is. This is something that I wouldn't tolerate from anybody else. and I do my very best to not do that to other people as well. You know, you just show up when you're supposed to show up. And you know, I'm looking to, you know, if anybody has any advice out there, we have a really great friend, Richard, that really does help me a lot. And I just got an email from him. I'm so grateful for that. Boy, I don't know if anybody else is out there has been having troubles. I know right now Mercury's in retrograde. If Josh was here right now, he'd be rolling his eyes. But but it's true. Mercury's in retrograde. It goes direct tomorrow. So it could be that things are haywire right now because of that. But boy, I have had such a hard time getting texts and emails out and receiving them as well. I sent one out yesterday and it was time sensitive, and something that I had said in the text let the other person know, and it wasn't intentional, but it was time sensitive. She got the text 3 hours later. But a lot of times people are just not getting texts, and I'm not getting texts, and emails all goofy and stuff. So I was so happy to get that email from Richard. So, the people that I know that have been so helpful to me, he's one of them. So I think maybe he will be able to share some insight, as to this situation. And, and it feels like the answer would be, Josh, you just show up. Josh, you do what you say you're going to do. Okay, you set your alarm if you need to, but you do what you say you're going to do. And like I say, I know him. I know Josh. He's going to feel bad about not being here. It's, he's very, very sensitive. And this is the stuff that all of you know by listening to this. You know that he's had a lifetime of talking about how he feels and about his behaviors and what he's able to do and what's difficult to do and what feels easy for him and what feels complicated. And sometimes it is just as easy as, dude, there's no excuse. This was uncool. Set your alarm. When we have a scheduled time to do a podcast, set your alarm. Now that's not going to be a problem. Well, I shouldn't say that like that. Who knows? But everybody knows that Josh has been, staying over at RJ's some, and for the renovations, and that's going to be done here in a couple of weeks. So Josh will be back here. So I guess all I'd have to do is go down the hall and, knock on his door. But that's not what this is about. This is about me being mad. So let's get back to me being mad. See, my brain works like this all the time, where I feel something, it's like, and then I guess maybe it's because I'm a Libra. I go back and forth and try to, find the rationale for something, or other people might say excuses. I not looking for excuses, but the situation, the circumstances, all inclusive qualities that influence the situation. And so, while I do, I start off mad, and then I do all that, and then I wander off down this road and, trying to rationalize something, and then, forget about why I was upset to begin with. But I am upset. I am. I don't think it's cool that he didn't show up. And it is just the perfect descriptor of an analogy of how it is with life with Josh. We had set it up for him to come do the podcast today. He didn't show up. And before that, I had spent the day dealing with different agencies on his behalf and caring for him and his well-being, and then he just doesn't show up. And it's the same thing with the speeches, that I work hard on that. I will contact people, we'll make arrangements, we'll go, and this part I think is funny, that he just waltzes on, and and on the stage, and he's the star of the show, and he's just so amazing at doing it that it makes sense. What doesn't make sense, though, is him not showing up when he says he's going to, and when he knows he's supposed to. And so right now, I'm just mad at him. I don't think it was cool. I don't think it was respectful. And the thing that I taught him was a little guy, that they're autism or not, there are things that are important to learn and to live by. And one of those things is that you do what you say you're going to do. And he is well aware that if he had called me and said, I'm too wiped out, I can't do it, I would have understood. If he had done anything to let me know that it needed to be rescheduled, or if he just wasn't okay, whatever it is, I got that. I get it. We make adaptations every single day. And it wouldn't have been a problem. The problem is just not showing up. And I don't like how that feels. It's not okay with me. So, that's my feelings today. Autism or not, dude, that's not cool. And so, I'm mad. So, I'm going to finish this. I am going to go to the beach, because the beach is my happy place. I'm going to go to the beach and stick my feet in the sand, and I hope I can. Because I still have a broken toe. It's my pinky toe. The dang thing has been broken for, a couple weeks now, and still it's swollen up and hurts, and I don't know what to do about it. Anyway, I can hop along the sand so I get to the water. I can do that. Anyway, so I guess that is enough rambling from me, and Josh will be here next week. I know that, because he'll make sure of it. Because he knows, he will know, he knows that I'm upset about him not showing up when he was supposed to. So, any advice, share it with me if you would. I'd love it. I'd love to hear your experiences that you have, and what you do, and how you help make changes, and how you feel about this. Because as parents and caregivers, it feels, does it feel to you like it feels to me sometimes, where it's like give, 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 and then the one that you're doing all that for just doesn't show up. And then I think that, and then I think, well, he's on the spectrum, and he doesn't know when sensory overload is going to take place. So, do you see what happened there? That's how we live life with Josh. So I do. As maybe as dysfunctional as that sounds, I don't stay mad at him. I don't stay mad at him long. So, anyway, all right. Thank you for listening to me today. I appreciate your indulgence, and I hope that you are happy and healthy, and Josh will be here next week, so tune in, and I'm sure I will be asking him about this, and we'll get his side of it. How's that sound? Anyway, big hugs to all of you, and we will talk to you next week. Love ya.